Hey y'all, I'm Attica Scott, former Kentucky State Representative, and you're joining me today on State Watch Nights.
We will continue to provide updates as we have more information.
Former Kentucky State Representative, and you're joining me today on State Watch Nights.
Thank you for tuning in to the live stream. We hope that you enjoy this conversation tonight as part of our District 1 JCPS Forum. We're doing 5 of these over the next 10 days so that you can get to know the candidates who are running for school board here in JCPS. This is an important conversation. We're grateful to those who made it out, and those who can't, stay tuned on live stream, and we'll see you after the show.
There will be a link in the chat beneath this video where you can go directly to our website, thepowershift26.org, to pledge to vote. Tell us that you are committed to making your voice heard. Now, to tonight's event. First, I want to thank the wonderful students and administrators here at the Louisville Central High School. Absolutely, you can give it up for them, who have hosted us, as well as to the district, for making sure that this is possible. All 5 of these district forums will be held at a school building. And that is important because we believe that this is an election about what happens in these schools. So we should be in the schools holding these conversations. We should be in these schools so that people can see the spaces that are going to be impacted by the decisions and the decision makers that we decide on. And so thank you, Central. Thank you, JCPS, for partnering with us and allowing us to host this here in the space. I'm about to turn this over to our moderator for tonight, who is a friend of the league and a great resource and asset to this community, Mr. Gilbert Corsi, who is an anchor at WDRB. Gilbert has partnered with us to host forums in the past, and we are excited to have him moderate tonight's event. He is going to lay out the rules as well as to introduce the participants for tonight and give us all the instructions. One last note, though, before I give it over to Gilbert. We invited all the candidates. We encouraged them to show up so that these forums could be held in front of the folks that they hope to serve. Most of the candidates, as a matter of fact, all with the exception of 3, actually accepted our invitation. That's across all forums. For tonight's forum, there are now 2 candidates running in District 1. Those 2 candidates both had accepted to be here. Currently, and you will see here shortly, that only one of them has arrived and has shown up. You can make of that what you will. What that means, we don't know and have not heard from the other candidate, and so I wanted to make sure that I'm the one who delivered that message. Should they arrive, then we will allow them to continue participating right where we started, but I just wanted to make sure that you are aware. And so we appreciate the candidate who is here for being willing to engage with us to answer the questions that are vital to our community. And so with that, I will now turn it over to our moderator for the night, Mr. Gilbert Corsi.
Thank you, Lyndon. Thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure to be asked to serve our community in this way because information is power, and that is key heading into the November election. We know that the stakes couldn't be higher right now for JCPS with the decision from the legislature to cut the board from 7 seats down to 5, redraw the boundary map, and put all of those seats up on the ballot for the November election. As Lyndon just said, we are only joined by one of the 2 candidates running for District 1 at this point in time, and I'll introduce her in just a moment. I do want to let you know the format that we're going with, not a debate, but a forum. So we will ask the candidate to give a 2-minute opening statement. They will then be asked questions and have 2 minutes to respond to each question. If there is a follow-up, I see there's a follow-up in the topic or in their response, they will have 1 minute for a follow-up. And with that, I'd like to welcome to the stage current District 1 JCPS board member, Gail Logan Strange. So, I think, Ms. Logan Strange, will you take the seat over to the left, one to the left for me? I'm going to call an audible, and I hope that the league will give me some leeway to do that. Because now with only one candidate here, this becomes more of a conversation and an interview. And so if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to take this off the podium. Unravel it a bit. And hopefully I have enough cord to come sit next to you. Because if I'm just going to have a conversation, it's a little preachy to be at the podium. Again, if Jody Hurt, the other candidate from District 1, joins the conversation, we will go back to the format as presented, and I'll take my seat at the podium. Ms. Logan Strange, you have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Well, this is, okay, now here we go. Well, thank you, Gilbert, and I want to thank the Urban League for having me here. And I am the current representative of District 5.
You will be District 1.
It was previously
yes.
District 1, and
Gotcha.
I'm running for District 1. But
Clear as mud, right?
Clear as mud. With the redistricting, I'm now representing District 5. But I am Gail Logan Strange, and I'm running for re-election for District 1 of Jefferson County Board of Education. I'm running because I believe public education is one of the most important promises we make to our children, our families, and our community, and that every child in every neighborhood deserves the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to succeed. As a current board member, I have worked to advance educational equity for all JCPS students. To me, that means making sure students have the support, the resources, safety, encouragement, and high expectations they need, regardless of zip code, race, sexual orientation, gender, disability, income, or family circumstances. Our students do not all begin in the same place, but every student deserves a real chance to reach their full potential. I am also running because this is a critical moment in JCPS. Families want strong schools that they can trust. Teachers and staff need to feel supported and heard. Taxpayers deserve responsible financial oversight and transparency. And most important, students need academic progress that prepares them for life after graduation, whether they choose college, career training, military, or entering the workforce. My priorities are clear: protect the district's financial stability, improve academic outcomes for every student, strengthen support for educators and school staff, and make every graduate that leaves JCPS prepared for college, career, and life. I believe we can meet this moment by listening carefully, making responsible decisions, and always keeping students at the center of our work. I am proud of the work we have begun, but I know there's more to do. And so I'm asking for your vote on November 3rd so I can continue serving as District 1 with integrity, accountability, and a deep commitment to every child in Jefferson County Public Schools.
Thank you for that statement, and the sound you heard was actually the timer going off in 2
Alrighty
minutes.
then.
Because we do not have another candidate at this point in time, I didn't interrupt you. But we do want to be able to get through our full slate of conversation, so I'm going to ask you to be respectful of that time.
Sure.
And if you
I
go
just
over,
thought
I'm going
somebody's
to.
phone would ring.
No, that's not the phone. That's down that time that says
Gotcha.
your time is up.
Gotcha.
All right. Let's jump into the first round of questions here. We're talking about financial stability and board governance. Well, the $188 million deficit exposed the breakdown in financial oversight and transparency at JCPS. So what will you do as a make sure that the board is never again surprised by the true condition of the district's finances? We want you to be specific here.
Well, we have to start looking at what the budget to actual spending comparisons are. We've not had that in the past. And so we have to have a spending projection that's presented to the board. And then we also have to have regular cash projections so that we know how much cash is on hand. In addition to that, we have to look at everything and see what the cost is versus the benefit. So what's our return on our investment when we invest in these things that are being put in front of us? And then even a more stringent budget and review process, which is critical. Because when you come up with $188 million and it's deficit and it's a surprise, that's totally unacceptable. So we have to have a high level of review, a high level of ways to look at the budget, but most importantly, for me, it's what projected, what's budget, what's actual, and what's year to date. Because you need to know where you are at every interval to make sure you're not running a budget deficit.
We know that 188 million was the deficit. The cuts didn't quite make it that far. You guys cut about 130 some odd million from the next year's finances. But the reporting has said that you don't get to a balanced budget for 7 more years. So what specific areas of the current budget would you propose reducing?
We don't get, okay, I lost you there, that we don't get to a current budget.
You don't get to a balanced budget.
budget.
There'll be several more years before it's fully balanced. So what specific areas of current spending would you propose reducing?
Well, I would not, first of all, I'd look at the contracts. We really need to review all of the contracts that we have to make sure, number one, those contracts are doing what we need them to do. They're bringing the resources that we need them to bring. And if they're not bringing those resources, then why do we need them? Or do we have duplicate contracts? Do we have more than one agency or more than one provider providing the same service? And how much is that costing? So we have to look at everything that we do and hopefully leave staff and schools alone, because that's where we make our biggest impact. And we're cutting staff out of schools. And we know the one thing that's needed most in our schools right now are bodies. And so to be cutting staff, it's not a wise, well, it may save money, it's not wise for the production and the outcome of our students.
All right, thank you for that. We'll shift the conversation now to student learning and outcomes. JCPS continues to struggle with persistent achievement gaps between demographic groups. For example, reports show only 36% of students are proficient in reading. So what specific measurable student learning outcomes will you prioritize as a board member? And how will you hold the superintendent accountable if those targets are not met in the first 2 years?
Well, numeracy and literacy are critical, because if our children can't read and they can't do math, then they're lost. And that has to happen at the elementary level. For me, a very solid strategic plan has to be put in place. I don't know why this might, a strong strategic plan has to be put in place. We need a roadmap. Where are we going? What are we trying to accomplish? And if we don't have a strategic plan that says, this is where we want to go, these are the measurements that we want, and this is the time frame that we want to do that, then we're floundering. And the superintendent and his staff, everybody has to be held accountable for that, because we owe that to our children.
What does accountability look like for you if metrics and measures and proficiency isn't going up in his first 2 years on the job?
Well, first of all, his first two, and you're talking about the superintendent's first 2 years?
Yes.
This first year has been, we have done nothing but fight this battle over the budget. And so what has to happen, again, in his review and everything else, we have to have very specific measurements that we want. And if that doesn't happen, just like any workforce place, you put on a performance improvement plan and then you go from there. But we have to, at this point, ready to give him some grace because I know what this first year has been. It has been anything but academics, although I'm hearing from the schools that I'm visiting that the teachers and principals are liking the direction that we're going in. So we'll see how that works and if academics improve.
Thank you for that. Let's keep it in the classroom here. A recent state audit that JCPS released in July of 2026 indicated that many teachers relied heavily on students working individually on Chromebooks, reducing high quality engagement and instruction materials. First, did you read that report, and what do you believe is a solution for reducing screen time and increasing high quality teacher engagement?
I did read some of that report. The report was extensive. Um, More teacher interaction, more one-on-one, which means we have to reduce class sizes, which means that we have to have more teachers, and our teachers have to be better prepared, better trained, which should come from the district level. Better training for our teachers, better preparations for our teachers, and again, bodies in the building. Now, whether that's teachers' assistants, volunteers, whoever it is, we have to get people in there to help our teachers. But first and foremost, we have to make sure that our teachers have the resources that they need to do what we're expecting of them as well.
Do you believe that the board should put some kind of floor or metric or number that says no more than X amount of minutes should be spent on a device or a Chromebook? Should the board be that hands-on with classroom instruction?
Okay, a board's role is governance. It's not day-to-day operation. And so I would prefer for the teachers, the principals to tell us that rather than the board saying you have to do this and that. Because again, then we are not in those classrooms every day. And so we have to listen to what the people who are in the classrooms tell us.
We're going to stay in the classroom. You know, kids are the center of the world. That's what Superintendent Yearwood has said repeatedly. So we have a number of questions around this area. So last week there was some report from WDRB that revealed the Farnsley Middle School agenda that went out at the beginning of the school year. The booklet contained many errors like wrong names for states and the periodic table. So what guardrails from a government standpoint should the district be putting around staff and students using AI in the classroom?
Well, AI is meant to be a tool to enhance. AI is not to be the source of all information. So clearly, and we have talked about this in board meetings, how do we use AI? How do we use AI as an enhancement rather than the foundation of teaching? Because it can't replace humans, obviously. And it is helpful, but it has to be monitored. And so we have to know what we're putting out, and especially if we're using AI to do that, some human eyes have to have a look at the final product.
The question was what guardrails, what rules should the board be putting around this emerging technology and how it's used by staff, faculty to educate the kids?
Well, again, I am not opposed to using AI. And so the guardrails have to be that regardless of what AI produces, human eyes have to look at that. So at the end of the day, teachers and staff, principals, they're responsible for what goes out of the building. And so rather the board says you must look at it or whatever that final statement is, that final decision is, we need to make sure that AI is incorporated because we cannot leave our children out. Children have to know AI because that's the future of where we're going. But again, it has to be used with discretion. And the board putting some kind of guardrails and policies in place has to happen, how we use it. But again, let's get there because we're not there yet.
Let's shift the conversation now to student discipline. Restorative justice, school policy, and the school police system represent two fundamentally opposing approaches to student behavior, safety, and discipline. Restorative justice prioritizes relationship building, repairing harm, and emotional accountability, whereas the school police system relies on law enforcement, security measures, and punitive legal consequences. So which do you believe is right for JCPS and why?
It has to be both and. Restorative justice has to, for me, take priority because students need to have an opportunity to make corrective actions, to say, oh, I did this wrong, let me see how I move forward. But there has to be that partnership between the JCPS Police Department and the safety administrators so that it's not all about the punitive action. It's about helping our students understand this behavior is unacceptable. And so the better partnership there is with the SROs and the police, JCPS police, then the better outcome for our students. And my preference is that JCPS police work with our students more so than LMPD. Because when LMPD works with them, it's on a whole different level. And so I would rather there be this really tight relationship between our SROs and our internal police department to help guide children rather than kick them to the side.
How do you think the district's doing in striking that balance between restorative justice and law enforcement?
Well, we still have a certain number of children being suspended. And again, that's disproportionately aimed toward Black boys. And so when we look at this, if we can, because I don't know the number as far as the data, as far as how many arrests we're having or anything like that, but we do know that the number of guns that have been brought into our schools have gone down, and that I hear anecdotally from SRO officers how important they are in the school because they're able to de-escalate. And the more we have situations that are de-escalated before they need to even get to the JCPS police, the better it is. So I understand that things are getting better, but there's always room to grow.
I'd like to frame this next section of questioning around the Frankfurt effect. Thank you, appreciate the jokes in the crowd. I write my own material. So lawmakers in Frankfurt have focused on JCPS. They cut the board obviously down from 7 seats down to 5, redrawing the district map, and have put every seat on the ballot in the fall. They've also been considering splitting up the district for the last couple of years. So I think it's important to ask every person who is running this race, not just from your district, do you support dividing JCPS into a smaller school system? Why or why not?
I absolutely do not support dividing the district into a smaller system. Number one, they've not given any kind of evidence that that's going to improve student outcome. There are districts all over the country larger than JCPS that are functioning and doing well. So what would be the purpose of diminishing the size and breaking it up into however many districts they wanted to? How would that help student outcome, number one? And number two, how would it be funded? When we already have fund deficits, and not just JCPS, but fund deficits across the state of Kentucky for school systems. How would breaking up the districts here in Louisville, how would that be funded? And then how would you be able to fund each of those districts? And the trend across the country right now is to combine districts rather than breaking districts up. So there must be some reason for that. Right now, I see nothing positive coming out of breaking up JCPS.
So what specific changes would you then pursue to show that a unified JCPS can improve financial oversight, operations, and student outcomes?
Well, first and foremost, we've got to improve student outcomes. That has to be a priority for this district. And once that happens, then I think Frankfurt could say, oh, well, you know, what we're trying to do doesn't necessarily need to be done. Right now, there's legislation that's talking about student assessment and accountability. And when we look at the big picture kinds of things, then that makes us more successful in what we're trying to accomplish. But just to say that we need to break the district up has for me, it has no bearing on student outcome. And so unless you can prove that to me, leave the district alone.
The legislature passed Senate Bill 1, which shifts decision-making authority from the elected school board to the superintendent in many areas. And it also raised the threshold for the board to overrule the superintendent. Do you believe that's necessary reform or legislative overreach?
I think it's legislative overreach. Every CEO of every corporation has a board that they have to report to. And the way SB1 reads, it's almost like the superintendent has a free hand. And for me right now, we're living through the nightmare of an SB1.
We're going to move the conversation to diversity, equity, and poverty. JCPS lost about $10 million in federal funding tied to diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. How would you determine what students and schools are losing, not just on paper from a dollars and cents standpoint, but also in services and outcomes? And what information would you expect the administration to provide them? How would you use it to decide whether services need to be restored, redesigned, or just funded differently, maybe from a different avenue than federal dollars?
Well, we already know that some of the money that we've lost, particularly with schools like Coleridge Taylor, where they're losing possibly money for the Montessori program. We know how that impacts education. Poverty knows no color, it knows no zip code. Poverty, and that's what our program was called, Diversity, Equity, and Poverty. The Trump administration, for whatever reason, has decided that they want to wipe out diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so, where does that money need to come from? Who determines which programs are worthy to be cut and which ones stay in existence? So it's going to be a lot of programs that really were providing some services for students and resources that they may not have at home, but yet and still they've been cut. And so when you start cutting $10 million from programs for no good reason, you have to then determine, and I don't know how we determine which of these programs stay and which was absolutely necessary and which could have been done away with. So I think you're going to have to look at all the programs that are impacted by those cuts to determine which programs are best and what other revenue sources can we come up with to support those things that were lost.
At this moment, I want to press pause and speak to our audience who is here live with us at Central High School. I believe that the Urban League has 3x5 cards that it has passed around. Because we look like we're going to have some time on the back end, we do have several more questions now. But because it looks like we're going to have some time on the back end, we do invite you to write your own questions, and we'll be posing them to Board Member Logan Strange at the end of our conversation. All right, let's get back to it. I want to talk about trust. Public confidence is essential for a successful school board. What specific actions would you take as a board member to build trust with families, with employees, with the community, while maintaining transparency and accountability?
Well, I think the word that you use, transparency. We really have to be transparent with what's going on in our systems, what's going on in our schools. How can I trust you if I don't know what's going on? And so for me personally as a board member, that means me going into the schools in the districts that I represent and building a rapport with the staff, building a rapport with the kids when possible, so that they know they have an ally on the board that they can call. They have my phone number, they have my email address, because it has to be a personal thing. And then we have to do what we say we're going to do as a board, as a district. If we say we are about turning around academic progress and increasing academic performance, we've got to do that. If we say we're going to be fiscally responsible, then we can't go order something that makes absolutely no sense to have in our schools just because somebody came up with a good idea. We have to look at every item that we're ordering, every purchase that we make at this point to see what is the return on our investment. And so we have to be as transparent as possible. And when we say we're going to do something, we have to do it.
I want to go back to organizational stewardship and trust, right? Because the $188 million deficit certainly had an impact on trust for some people in this community. But that issue wasn't on an island alone. So reliable transportation, stable staffing, effective operations, responsible budgeting, they are all directly impacting student success. There are many areas where the school district has struggled at times in recent years. So how would you evaluate whether the district is being a good steward of taxpayer money while ensuring that students receive the services that they need?
Again, when you implement a whole new transportation system and you've not put out a bid, you've gone with a one bid contract, and this company has a reputation of not being good, but yet still you move forward. How can I trust what you say? So that goes back to being fiscally responsible, where I have to put bids out and have people and have companies demonstrate that they can deliver what they say they offer. That means that we have to look at those contracts, that we have to see, again, what is the return on the investment and how does that impact student outcome? It means superintendents have to be honest. It means that superintendents can't tell CFOs not to tell the board certain information. That transparency and honesty has to be there in order for us to really move the needle forward with all of our schools and all of our students.
So should the board have more communication with, I guess, more cabinet members so all of it may not be, is it coming directly through the superintendent in the future, given the problem that you just laid out right there?
Well, the board is responsible as our one employee that the board is responsible for is the superintendent. I know with the previous administration, it was a no-no for you to talk to other people in the cabinet. I don't feel that way right now. But we shouldn't have to go to those individuals as board members. That information should be readily given to the board. It should be honest and given with honesty. There should be integrity. And if there's not, we have a problem. And then all of a sudden, surprise, you have a $188 million deficit when you were told that it was, I think, 100 million, but we have the reserves to cover it.
In the Yearwood administration, is there a line of communication with other chief officers? And if not, how would the board be able to not travel down the same road of being kept in the dark if
Well-
there's not an open line of communication?
Well, there is a much more open line of communication, but again, the board is responsible primarily for the superintendent. But the board has to now ask questions. When we have these chiefs and cabinet members making reports at board meetings, we have to ask the hard questions. We have to ask for the information that will come up, that will give us the answers that we need to make sure that we're getting accurate information from one point, and that there's enough transparency so that we understand truly what's happening.
I want to go now to decision making. School boards often receive input from many stakeholders with differing perspectives. So how would you use student achievement data, financial information, and community feedback to make decisions that are in the best interest of most students?
Well, I think you just said it. First and foremost, we've got to use the data. We've got to use our constituency voices, what we hear from our constituency. And then to really prepare ourselves by reading, we get so much information. But you have to read and go through that information to make sure that you understand it. And then that's how decisions are made. So you don't just make decisions in isolation. You really do have to consider various viewpoints and the total amount of information you get when you're making a decision.
And I'm going to ask staff members from the Urban League to start bringing questions up to the stage. And with that, I'm going to ask you our last question that I've prepared in advance. So student well-being, student success depends on more than academics. We know that, right? So what role should the board play in ensuring that students attend school regularly, that they feel safe when they're there, they develop positive relationships with adults, and have access to the academic, social, emotional, and behavioral supports that they need to thrive?
Well, those are those wraparound services that board members need to make sure that all of our schools have. And we have to do that in partnership with organizations like the Urban League, like United Way, to make sure that those basic human needs that our students have are being met. Because when a child doesn't have clean clothes or appropriate clothes, when they don't have shoes, or whatever the issue is that keeps them out of school, a child cannot learn if they're not in school. And so we have to work in collaboration with community groups, community organizations to make sure that students have what they need to be successful. And then make sure that we have money in the budget for those schools that need the most resources.
So when you talk about where cuts have to be made, right? Like, or is wraparound services maybe because it's not directly related to a book in a classroom? Is that somewhere that could be see a reduction?
Well, again, what I said was we need to partner with community organizations, and those community organizations do a better job of, perhaps do a better job of providing those wraparound services, because that's the business that they're in. We're in the business of educating children. So we need to make sure that we do what we do best, and that we partner with groups that can help us make sure that those services are provided so that our students can succeed.
All right, we're going to turn into question now from the audience here. All right, when thinking of the timeline, how the budget carryover occurred after JCTA negotiations, debt was decided to carry over. Do you now see an opportunity for raises for teachers? Sorry, the handwriting. I'm in a room of educators, and the handwriting was rough on this one.
Because I need the bottom line question.
Raises for teachers is the bottom line question.
The bottom line question. Well, we worked in partnership with JCPS this year. But as a trained educator, I'm always going to be in favor of giving teachers money. And when I say money, I mean paying them fairly. Um, I have a corporate background. I don't want to keep saying that. But what I recognize is that when I performed well on my job, I got a bonus. When teachers perform well, they don't get bonuses. Why not? What's to say that a teacher who can really turn a school around or turn a class around as a part of their review process, that some kind of compensation shouldn't be given to them?
Hasn't the district used bonuses and incentives in the past, or
We-
is that
we-
other school systems?
Not in the sense that I'm talking about.
All right.
There were incentives for working in certain schools, but not necessarily tied to performance.
It wasn't tied to the state test results? Okay, all right. All right, this one is written a little bit more clearly. Thank you, appreciate it. What should collaboration between the leadership of the school district and the community and affected stakeholders look like?
Again, you need to know how to reach us, and then we need to reply. And that sounds so overly simplified. But if we're not communicating, and if I'm not listening to you, how can I best represent you? So there has to be open communications. We have to talk to each other, so that there is that collaboration.
Did the superintendent brief the board before he reported stipends for faculty in lowest performing schools?
Did he what?
Did the superintendent brief the board before he, this may not be reported, maybe it's repeal the stipends for faculties in lowest performing schools?
Are we talking about the choice zone cut, the stipends?
You're seeing exactly what I'm seeing on the card right
Yeah.
now. But recently, if I go into my institutional knowledge, recently there was reporting that teachers in schools, yes, in choice zones, received several thousand more dollars, and it was very close to the start of schools where they realized or were told that I believe it was something like 17 schools were no longer eligible for that stipend. I believe that's what the question is referring to. I did not write it. I wrote exactly what was here. Ultimately, the question is asking, was the board briefed before those dollars, before that communication went out to the schools?
I don't remember having a very clear conversation about that.
Okay. JCPS is not just college prep or just, what do you think that one is? Vocational. How do we direct academies so graduates can be lifelong learners?
Well, that's the point of the academies. And you see that they're being prepared to go to work. Once they leave those academies, they can literally, the ones who can go work in aviation and get a job as soon as they leave. And so there has to be an incentive, and by incentive I mean an educational incentive, that makes you want to be a lifelong learner. A person has to want to be a lifelong learner to do that. And so hopefully their experience while they're within JCPS is so challenging, is so robust, that they want to be a lifelong learner.
All right, this is going to be my last audience question here. Do you believe that Black students are actually the lowest performing or lowest learners in the district? What do you base your belief on?
No, I don't believe that. The numbers are showing, we definitely know that we have an achievement gap. Now, the question is why and how do we improve or close that achievement gap? But for me to sit here and say that I believe Black students are
lowest performers / learners in the district?
absolutely not. Statistically, the scores are lower, but Mentally, absolutely not.
And with that, that's going to bring us to the close of our conversation for tonight. In the rules at the beginning, this was set up for a 2-minute closing statement. So I'm going to give you the floor and the opportunity to do that now.
All right, Gilbert. Well, thank you. Again, serving on this board has been an honor for me. And it's an honor because I have a passion for learning and for seeing all children do well. To just say, go to school, graduate, get a job is not enough. Every child needs to be challenged. They need to know that somebody is the champion for them. They need to know that people have great expectations. And that's what I think our children don't hear enough of, that I expect greatness out of you. And when we tell our children that and allow them to live up to our expectations, then we see a change. We see a change in performance, and there is no reason that every student, every school within JCPS, and every student within JCPS should not be excelling. And so, for me personally, that's what I'm hoping this superintendent to feet to the fire. One of the reasons I voted for him was his track record of changing the trajectory of districts, turning districts around academically. And so I expect nothing less. And that's where we need to go. And so I hope you will vote for me on November 3rd so that I can get with my fellow board members and other colleagues within the education system, get this accomplished, because we have got to make our school system great.
Gail Logan Strange, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Felicia Newman.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you all. Thank you, Ms. Strange.
You're welcome.
For attending. I want to tell everybody, thank you for coming back. We have 4 more JCPS forums for the remaining district. Hope you come out there. Tomorrow we're at the voice. We'll hear from the 4 candidates that are speaking, hopefully, they can. And I hope y'all will not say my word.
These are the undeniable facts.
We are here today as a result of an election.
If you show up, you have power. You have power if you show up.
Anything that you are concerned about, any worry that you have for you and your family, we can tie it directly to a vote and to an election.
Hey, Louisville, thank you for tuning in to Stay Live Streams and the recording of the JCPS Forum. We had a great conversation tonight with 2 of our candidates for District 1. Join us for tomorrow's episode when we are going to be talking to more in District 2. This is really important. Our kids' future depends on who wins these races, and your voice matters. So come out and join us, or join us here online.
Hey y'all, I'm Attica Scott, former Kentucky representative, and you're joining me today on Stay Live Streams.
We will continue to provide updates as we have more information.
Former Kentucky State Representative, and you're joining me today on Stay Live Streams.